I'd now like to introduce to you our next speaker, Mr. Peter Rowe. Peter serves as our Team CFA Education Technology Division Leader. He is a brilliant software developer and educator. He's developed educational software in language arts, science, math, and social studies used in schools and bundled on Apple computers. Peter also developed reading software based on the findings of the National Reading Panel. So please give a warm welcome to Mr. Peter Rowe.
Good morning, everybody. It's funny, but you can't hear the person speaking here just from just there. I asked Jill not to say anything about me when she came out first, but thank you, Jill. Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here today. As some of you may know, I was supposed to be here last year, but I decided to take a trip on my motorcycle one last time, and I ended up in the back of an ambulance, and I couldn't make it. So I'm here, legs a bit busted, but I'm good to go. It is very exciting to be here. Is it too loud? Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, okay, good. It really is. It's amazing to see these showcases. It's just fantastic. It's so empowering for me. Your time is precious, I know that, so I'm going to try and make this as efficient as possible. The talk today is about the importance of technology and how we might integrate it a little bit more into our schools. So I'm just going to try and persuade you a little bit and make a case for that. I work with the Educational Technology Division at Team CFA. There's 5 of us. You'll meet them later, meet that team. Our mission is to support the academic goals of Team CFA. That's it. And that's core knowledge. And of course, we like to do that with technology. So that's our plan. Jill mentioned, yes, I have a background. I'm not a teacher, don't claim to be, but I have worked in education for a number of years developing software, educational software. So I thought I'd stay in that realm. A little bit about that. We develop K-12 software in the subjects Jill mentioned, the findings of the National Reading Panel, which actually came out as a result of what Linda said yesterday about the NAEP. That was in like the late 90s. Congress looked at those results of reading proficiency and said, oh my God, we got to do something. And they formed the National Reading Panel, and they went out and researched a lot of papers on how kids learn to read. So we made software as a result of that. So I thought it might be good to just look a little bit how that's done, how it works. And you might be surprised to know that creating educational software is only about quarter software. The rest of it it's actually structured. It's structured typically if you're doing a subject. What you do is you hire a PhD content expert in there. You get an expert teacher. That's the most important part, obviously. You get a psychologist in there to do the cognitive stuff. You get an assessment expert in there. Of course, you have to know about your curriculum. And you get outside experts in there. We work with people like Sally Sawitz, who's a dyslexia expert in reading. That's important in how your brain functions. People like the DIBBLES program, that's out of the University of Oregon, so the founders of that. NWEA actually is located 3 blocks from where I work, so in Portland, Oregon. It's very interesting. So anyway, and then you have a creative team. So you have designers, you have animators, you have graphic artists, you have narrators, you have programmers, you have QA people to do testing, and you have trial people to go out into schools. So that's the structure. And the way it's put together is if you're teaching something through software, you first look at the standards, and you look at your learning goals, and then you make a specification. And really what you do from there is very like making movies. You make a storyboard, you know those drawings with the text on them. You make a storyboard like that, and then you turn around and you make paper models if you can, and then you head out into the schools and you try and test it in the schools. So this is where you need the expert teacher. I remember doing that one time for a year. We went every week out to a school, and I couldn't believe how the teachers could manage those unruly kids. It was absolutely amazing. So I have so much respect for you, what you do in the classroom. It's just incredible. So you get that back, you get all the feedback, you start creating the software, you do it rough first so the graphics are not perfect, the animations are not perfect, so you can get it to the software developers so they can make it, you can run it out to the schools, do more testing feedback. You finish it off and you sell it to the public schools and third parties. So that's how all this works. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about, that's about 16 years of time went by there. I thought I'd talk a little bit about what we learned. So I made a few notes here from the last few days. One of the first things we found out is that creating educational software is very expensive. It's very expensive. Like you can spend $1,000 a minute to make that. The reason I laid out all those steps, you can see all the people involved. So the other thing is that's business-like. It's very difficult for businesses to make money in education. It just is. There's not a lot of money in education. So, you're kind of faced with those two problems when you have to choose software, and the resources companies have and the fact that they're going to stay in business and they're able to do the right studies to prove it works, things like that. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. Another thing we found is, it's just like corporations. The CEO dictates the personality and culture of a company. It filters down through the C-level, CEO, CTO, all that C-level disperses it throughout the company. So I like to say you almost in business have to be a tough person because you'll get taken advantage of if not. So you have to be very careful not to permeate that down through the organization. It's not like that in schools because their directors really are the CEOs, but still you need buy-in there. So that's what we're always looking for. You won't be able to integrate technology well in your school if you don't have it from the top down. And years ago, I don't know if you remember at this program showing some examples of that, and I always like to show how the principal, the director, was first behind the program. So we learned that. We also learned it's very difficult to get software or hardware in front of kids in public schools, not necessarily a Team CFA, but it's good to know this. I used to have an analogy that if you poured technology into the top of a school, it would never filter down to reach those kids for a bunch of reasons. Sometimes bureaucracy, not Team CFA, of course. Sometimes how to integrate it. Sometimes fear of the technology, sometimes lack of professional development. Money actually is oftentimes not a high topic in there. You would think it would be, but it isn't. There's a lot of help out there. So another thing we learned is that if you can get the technology in front of kids, they will use it. I think every parent knows that, and they will learn using it. There's a lot of controversy over that. So we learned those things, and that's what we try to do in the Educational Technology Division. We try and cater to those all the time. We're trying to not have those be a problem. So we think we can get technology in front of kids somewhat. We think they can learn from it, and we have a video that Sean is going to cue up here. I just want to show you something. This is, it's not a very, it's a little bit old, but I'm going to follow up here. It's just a minute or two long. Thanks, Sean.
14 years ago, and right next to where I used to work, there was a slum. And I used to think, how on earth are those kids ever going to learn to write computer programs? Or should they not? At the same time, we also had lots of parents, rich people, who had computers, and who used to tell me, my son, I think he's gifted, because he does wonderful things with computers. And my daughter, surely she's extra intelligent, and so on. So I suddenly figured that how come all the rich people are having these extraordinarily gifted children? What did the poor do wrong? I made a hole in the boundary wall of the slum next to my office, and I stuck a computer inside it just to see what would happen if I gave a computer to children who never would have one, didn't know any English, didn't know what the internet was. The children came running in, it was 3 feet off the ground, and they said, "What is this?" And I said, "Yeah, but it's, I don't know." So they said, "Why have you put it there?" I said, "Just like that." And they said, "Can we touch it?" I said, "If you wish to." And I went away. About 8 hours later, we found them browsing and teaching each other how to browse. So I said, "But that's impossible." because, how is it possible? They don't know anything. My colleagues said, no, it's a simple solution. One of your students must have been passing by, showed them how to use the mouse. So I said, yeah, that's possible. So I repeated the experiment. I went 300 miles out of Delhi into a really remote village where the chances of a passing software development engineer was very little. I repeated the experiment there. There was no place to stay, so I stuck my computer in, I went away, came back after a couple of months, found kids playing games on it. When they saw me, they said, we want a faster processor and a better mouse. So I said, how on earth do you know all this? And they said something very interesting to me. In an irritated voice, they said, you've given us a machine that works only in English, so we had to teach ourselves English in order to use it. That's the first time as a teacher that I heard the word teach ourselves said so casually. Here's a short glimpse from those years. That's the first day at the Hole in the Wall. On your right is an 8-year-old. To his left is his student. She is 6. And he's teaching her how to browse. Then on to the other parts of the country. I repeated this over and over again, getting exactly the same results everywhere. An 8-year-old telling his elder sister what to do. And finally a girl explaining in Marathi what it is and said there's a processor inside. So I started publishing.
That's good.
I published everywhere. I wrote down, I measured everything, and I said in 9
Thank you. Thank you. I just thought it was worth the time to see that. Actually, I never used my clicker. Oh, okay, great, cool. I just thought it was good to show that. That was a long time ago, but following that, he went out, he did 300 or 400 of these studies in India, and then he did it in England, he did it all over the place. And then he got kind of radical. He did things like he brought in voice synthesizers for English, and because they needed, the way in India they do a lot of customer support, and this thing would only respond if the English they were speaking was perfect. And he'd go back in, and you'd swear they were from London, these kids. They just sounded exactly English. It was amazing. Then he upped it another notch, and he would come out and he put them all over India, and he would put things like all kinds of information about biology, like DNA, RNA, chromosomes, and he'd just leave it there. And he'd come back, and they could pass tests that in the Western civilization we couldn't pass. No training, just on the computer. So if you want to look at it, it's really great. And I think we're in a kind of a similar position. We have the wonderful CK curriculum. We see that as leading the way, an arrow, the front point of the arrow, and we can bring technology in behind that, the wood of that, to help. So that's what we're trying to do. One thing that always, it's so great to see the showcases, because it's so easy to see everyone's interest in kids. I don't know if this resonates at all or not, but it always surprises me at how uniqueness these kids are, or how unique we are. And that's what this shows here. I'm trying to show here that, you have a little kid sitting there, and, they have 2 parents that had to be successful, right, to have that kid. And then you think, okay, well, their parents had to be successful. So now we have 4 of them, and they had to be perfectly successful. And then the great grandkids, so to speak, or great grandparents, they had to be successful. So we're going, there's 2 parents, then there's 4, then there's 8, there's then 16. You get 10 generations back, there's 1,000 people in your family, and they all had to be perfectly successful. You go 20 generations back, there's 1 million. Now, there's some cross-family in there, but if you were to believe in evolution and go back 4.5 billion years, there's a lot of life back there that had to be perfect. One of them missed, like in that diagram. One gone, you wouldn't be here, and that kid wouldn't be here. So it always amazes me at how unique and lucky we are to be here. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's kind of, I think, too, follows into the point of there's really no better calling than teaching. As I get older, that's what I find out. It's like there's nothing better than teaching the next generation Science even proves it with DNA. Flowing through all those generations is DNA. We're all really immortal, aren't we? The DNA just flows through and it flows on to the next generation. There is nothing better than teaching the next generation, which is what you do. So that's why I said I was so excited, and I have so much respect for that. Linda mentioned something yesterday I thought I'd touch on a little bit, in that, in the 1950s and 60s in the United States, kids' educational capabilities was really tied to race. But it isn't anymore. It's now tied to income. And in fact, since 1960, that gap between the affluent and low income, has grown 40%. The difference between black and white kids has grown only half that. I thought that was pretty interesting. It's also interesting that since 1980, just the 80s, not that long ago, the difference between affluent and low income kids in college completeness has risen by, the gap there has grown by 50%. Now, college completion is the single biggest predictor of work success. So that's a problem right there. Now, that's why John and Martha got into this. That's why you'll see them go into the low-income communities. That's why they do that. And we're just looking to level some of that playing field. It's like the joke that Mitra said there. It was like, all the smart kids aren't being born, to rich parents. They're all the same. So we're trying to level the playing field a little bit with technology. So what do? Well, we know students need a knowledge base. We know they need to develop, the ability to reason and think. We know we need to extend their capabilities. And, that all sounds familiar, doesn't it? It sounds like core knowledge. So we kind of got that covered. And the new instructional coach program, does everyone know about that? Has everyone in this room heard about the instructional coach program? You have. Anyone who hasn't heard about it? You only get to do this once a year, so I like to ask. So this is going to be fantastic. This is something I'm really thankful to the Team CFA board and Tony for somehow pulling this off. But we have 8 instructional coaches this year, managed by Tony Best, one of our own, which is great because he knows everybody. So we're going to try and coattail technology in on that a little bit. So core knowledge, classroom management, whatever the decisions are, and we're trying to add technology to that. So how does technology fit in? Well, I like to look at it that you have to live in the times with technology. If you go way back, you look at the Stone Age, 2.5 million to 10,000 years ago. You look at next the Bronze Age, that was 3000 BC. Now you look at the Iron Age, that was in the 8th century. Now you look at the Industrial Revolution, that was in the 18th century, that was just yesterday. That wasn't that long ago, right? But you had to live in that age. The internal combustion engine completely replaced the horse. The only part left is we call it horsepower. So if you were a farrier when the automobile came in, that wouldn't be a good place to be. And it's like that with technology, I think. So a question is, what is this age? It's not the information age. The information age happened in the 90s. There's something you'll notice, though, about there's something new going on, I think. And a lot of people, I think there's 2 sides to it. But if you look back at those earlier ages, like the Stone Age and the Bronze Age and the Iron Age and the Industrial Age, they all amplified our physical strength, right? It just made us be able to do more work. But the Information Age started something new, and that was brain power. It increases brain capacity. Not very much, it was a first step. So I think this age is the age, and I work in this industry, so I'll tell you a little bit about that. I think this age is the age of machine learning. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, because it's my job to say this. There's a few components of that you'll see, and I know some of you here are very well aware of this. But remember a few years ago we were talking about cloud computing, and it was all complicated and sophisticated till we all figured out it was just the servers are out there and we get to it on the internet. That was it, right? You were using Amazon all the time. You were using cloud computing. Well, the components of this machine learning are a few things. One of them is this thing called big data. Believe it or not, it's a thing. 2 words, big data. You can Google it. And what that means is that it means the data is so big we can't store it, and if we could store it, we couldn't process it. Too big. That's what big data is about. Now, Big data is really about solving that problem. And that problem is solved. The Googles of the world, the Facebooks of the world that have a lot of data have solved that problem. And so it's typically done by, actually Amazon does this. Amazon, believe it or not, has this thing called AWS. Amazon is the most powerful server company in the world. It's incredible what they do with big data. So you can go to Amazon and you can just generate 10,000 computers right there. Run something on them, get rid of them again so you're not paying any money. So big data, there's crazy names on it, things like Hadoop, Kinesis, Redshift, all these technologies, but all it does, it's able to handle a lot of data and process it. Okay, so keep that to one side. The next piece, God, I should be, hang on a second. Perfect, is this, Internet of Things, IoT. You're going to see that everywhere. What's that? All it means is everything is connected to the internet. You see it already. It's kind of insidious. Like your rheostat or your temperature of your house, your smoke detector. Of course, your phone is connected, but it'll be the lock on your door. It'll be the light. It'll be the kettle. It'll be the microwave. It'll be everything. Everything is connected to the internet. In my business, I work actually in trucking, software in trucking. And what we do is we get telematics from the truck. So we can tell, for example, if that truck is speeding, following too close, hard braking events by the driver, stability control. We can tell if one tire is hotter than others. And if we see that, we know the load might be positioned wrong. It's incredible what you can tell with this stuff. So now we have everything connected to the internet, and we have a IoT, and we have a way of storing it and processing it, big data. So with those two, we now can bring in machine learning. So we're going to look at a few little videos here real quickly, but hold on, Sean, 1 second. Machine learning, it's important, I think, to say up to this point, everything in a computer has been pretty manual. You know, you write instructions, you're a programmer, you put in all the steps. You're going to get paid this gross amount up here. Okay, if it's between $35,000 and $40,000, then the federal tax rate will be this, then this net pay is this, minus that rate, all the steps, that's what's being done. Machine learning is where the machine learns by observation. And its idea of observation is looking at that data we just spoke about. So recently I was down in Texas and saw what Sean is going to bring up next. Maybe you can show that one, Sean. Yeah, at 7 minutes 45, if we can start that. Yeah, perfect.
Let's spend some time talking about how the car sees the world. So this is our vehicle. It starts by understanding where it is in the world by taking a map and its sensor data and aligning the two. And then we layer on top of that what it sees in the moment. And so here, all the purple boxes you can see are other vehicles on the road, and the red thing on the side over there is a cyclist. And up in the distance, if you look really closely, you can see some cones. Then we know where the cars were in the moment, but we have to do better than that. We have to predict what's going to happen. So here the pickup truck in the top right is about to make a left lane change because the road in front of it is closed. And so it needs to get out of the way. Knowing that one pickup truck is great, but we really need to know what everybody's thinking. So it becomes quite a complicated problem. And then given that, we can figure out how the car should respond in the moment. And so what trajectory it should follow, how quickly it should slow down or speed up. And then that all turns into just following a path, turning the steering wheel left or right, pressing the brake or gas. It's really just two numbers at the end of the day. So how hard can it really be? Back when we started in 2009, this is what our system looked like. So you can see our car in the middle, the other boxes on the road driving down the highway. The car needs to understand where it is and roughly where the other vehicles are. It's really a geometric understanding of the world. Once we started driving on neighborhoods and city streets, the problem becomes a whole new level of difficulty. You see pedestrians crossing in front of us, cars crossing in front of us, going every which way, the traffic lights, crosswalks. It's an incredibly complicated problem by comparison. And then once you have that problem solved, the vehicle has to be able to deal with construction. So here the cones on the left are forcing it to drive to the right, but not just construction in isolation, of course. It has to deal with other people moving through that construction zones as well. And of course, if anyone's breaking the rules, the police are there. And the car has to understand that that flashing light on the top of the car means that it's not just a car, it's actually a police officer. Similarly, the orange box on the side here, it's a school bus. And we have to treat that differently as well. When we're out on the road, other people have expectations. So when a cyclist puts up their arm, it means they're expecting the car to yield to them and make room for them to make a lane change. And when a police officer stood in the road, our vehicle should understand that this means stop, and when they signal to go, we should continue. Now, the way we accomplish this is by sharing data between the vehicles. The first kind of most crude model of this is when one vehicle sees a construction zone, having another know about it so it can be in the correct lane to avoid some of the difficulty. But we actually have much deeper understanding of this. We can take all of the data that cars have seen over time, the hundreds of thousands of pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles that have been out there, and understand what they look like, and use that to infer what other vehicles should look like and other pedestrians should look like. And then, even more importantly, we can take from that a model of how we expect them to move through the world.
I think
so here,
that's
the
good,
yellow
Sean.
box is a pedestrian crossing.
Thank you. That's just trying to show this is here. These things exist. So you get in, there's no steering wheel, it drives you around. I like to show, you might see that term there, software is eating the world. You might have heard of that. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But it is. It's eating the world. So we have to make sure our kids are prepared for that world we live in. I like to show the marketing side of these things too. So we have another little video there, Sean, underneath that. Thank you.
Today, we have something extra special for you guys, and you guys will be some of the first people outside of our team and outside of Google to ever ride in it.
Oh, there it is. Oh, isn't that cute?
Go ahead and buckle up.
Okay, Annie, here we go. All right, Cody, let's go. There's no steering wheel in the way.
It was a big decision for us to go and start building our purpose-built vehicles for this. And really, they're prototype vehicles. They were a chance for us to explore what does it really mean to have a self-driving vehicle. But in the small amount of time we've been working on it, we have functional prototypes, and that's exciting.
It's really cool. It was like really kind of a space age experience.
Okay. Hooray. We're like please.
You said relax. You don't need to do nothing. It knows when it needs to stop. It knows when it needs to go.
It actually rides better than my own car.
Yes, sure.
What she really liked was that it slowed down before it went around a curve and then accelerated in the curve. She's always trying to get me to do it that way.
That's the way I learned in high school driving.
That's good there, Sean. Thank you.
So if I had a self-driving car, I could spend more time hanging out with people.
These things are here today, so it's amazing. I work in the trucking industry, and is anyone up for one more quick 1-minute movie? This is the emotional part of it. See, that's the whole key. You'll remember the emotional part. You won't remember if I just keep talking up here. So I work in the trucking industry, and what's happening today is these trucks drive across the United States. You see them on the road, interstates, big 18-wheelers. They now have convoys. So what happens with that is the first truck comes in, drives along, and the next truck connects to that truck. It's not touching it. It's about 2 feet away, but it's being controlled by the first truck. And then the next truck comes in behind that, so they can get a convoy. We don't have to have the movies like Smokey and the Bandit. We just have the real convoys here now. And these things are very smart because like you saw in the Google car, it was just amazing. They see the whole environment. They can see you coming onto the freeway and they'll disconnect and let you in and then connect back up again. Interestingly, I really wanted to show the 3D modeling in the Google one because if you look at how the brain models the world, it's almost exactly the same. It's a little scary. It's exactly the same. Your brain has an edge detector, and it detects edges. Each one of you has a model of your house inside your head. And it goes through watching the 3D edges, and it fills in the textures in between, very like what you saw here. The big data part is all of it. That's the machine learning. They're not programming this thing. It's learning. But I really wanted you to see all the representations they had of humans there. That's the big data. In other words, they see humans or trucks or birds from so many different angles, they have them all. That's what they do. The Google car, by the way, does 3 million miles a day of simulated driving because they have the cars out there, they know where everything is. So it's learning, learning, learning all the time. This one here is about trucks, and again, this is the PR side of it. So Sean, maybe you can run that one. It's just a minute.
I've had my ups and downs, my fair share of bumpy roads and heavy winds. That's what made me what I am today. Now I stand here before you. What you see is a body crafted to perfection, a pair of legs engineered to defy the laws of physics, and a mindset to master the most epic of splits.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows? Only time. And who can say if your love grows as your heart shows? Only time. We gotta
Right, Sean. Thank you. So that's kind of the emotional, that's the marketing side. But if you're a truck driver, you know, we're coming back to living in your times, look at what's happening. Did you notice it was going backwards? Yeah. I grew up on a farm. It's pretty tricky to back up a trailer back there, right? I mean, but those things, it was amazing. Now, a few things about this, because we're talking about living in our times. But when you look at automated cars, here's something. We don't need 90% of our cars anymore. They're gone. Why is that? Well, when you think about it, it's like, where's your car now? You're not in it. You're here. So you drive to work every day, right? And you park your car, and you come home in the evening, and you put it in the garage. You're not driving your car. The way of the future is, it's kind of like Uber. You know, more on-demand cars. You don't own a car. Millennials don't want cars, right? They want bicycles. So you just don't own a car, but anytime you want a car, the car shows up. This is happening now in urban cities, where they're closing off traffic coming into the city, and they're setting up these self-drive cars. Because the most risky thing to a self-drive car is a car with a human in it. So they have to keep those out of the way, but that's the way it's going to be. So what happens, you know, car manufacturing when there's 90% less cars? You know, all those cars on the street, most of them are gone. All those garages, they're all gone. You know, that's software eating the world right there. So we have to prepare our kids for this kind of world. We're already in it. Our kids are certainly going to be in it when they enter the workforce. Another thing about self-driving cars and trucks is there's very few crashes. Like, let's say 90%. The actual numbers are something like 99% less crashes. So none of us like insurance, but what happens to the whole insurance industry when there's literally no crashes? The reason there's no crashes is the cars are talking to one another. They don't do anything sudden. One thing we didn't show here in the Google one is how some drivers go crazy and there's crashes and the Google truck avoids them, and our car avoids them. But that's impacting the jobs of the future. Another area I really want to touch is, I think it's misnamed. I like to call it like Star Trek Transporter or something like that. But it's called, well, we'll just run the next video. Check this out. I think you'll like this.
It may be the most eye-catching development in printing since Gutenberg invented the printing press 600 years ago. A machine that can make copies of almost anything, but this time in 3D. It seems like science fiction, but 3D printing is already in use, building hearing aids, jewelry, even parts for NASA. Now the technology is becoming available to anyone, meaning you can turn your garage into a small factory. So what would you build if you could create anything? Have a look.
What you are watching is an ear being printed. Layer upon layer, tiny droplets are deposited, building up the structure.
So this is someone's ear. this would be printed to be someone's ear.
Oh my goodness. The project is a type of 3D printing called bioprinting, led by Dr. Anthony Atala at the Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine in North Carolina.
Same technology you have at your very own home, but instead of printing sheets of paper with ink, you're actually printing tissues with cells.
The premise is simple. Send a scanned image of a body part to the printer, and the machine starts building. Ears, noses, fingers. Dr. Atala's goal is to transplant the parts directly into patients.
So we're actually testing a lot of these structures right now experimentally. The way it works is the cells are able to anchor onto the scaffold. They start making new tissue, and as that starts to happen, this scaffold goes away.
An ear takes between 4 to 6 hours to make, printed with what's called bio-ink, a mixture of biodegradable gel and actual human cells.
One of the big advantages of these technologies is that you are using the patient's own cells. And by doing so, really, you avoid the major problem of rejection.
Dr. Atala has specialized in regenerative medicine since 1990. But it wasn't until this TED Talk 2 years ago that the promise of building body parts caught fire.
90% of the patients on the transplant list are actually waiting for a kidney. You can actually see the printer back here, and that's been printing this kidney structure that you see here. Here it is. You can actually see that kidney as it was printed earlier today.
While implanting kidneys
That's good, Sean.
like
Thank you. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? You can buy a 3D printer on Amazon today. Now, you're probably not going to be printing kidneys, but you can print a case for your phone. You can. It's amazing what you can do. So, like I don't know if we'll have time to talk about this, but you know, everything in computers are bits, and in math we have to teach binary and bits. Whether it's a document, a picture, or you download music from the internet, right? You download videos from the internet. Now you can download things. Like I can download a case because I can print it. So, like for example. Last year on the International Space Station, they lost a spanner, a wrench, spanner, whichever is the American term, gone, couldn't find it, but they had a 3D printer. So they were able to transmit the information to print that wrench, and they regenerated it up there. I mean, you can download things now from the internet. What's that going to do? You know, you can do it yourself. I have another video I'd like to show again. This is kind of the marketing side of it. It's very short, but Sean, thank you.
So I'm just gonna go down here. We're looking for 912.
Hey, Alex, how are you? Pleasure to meet you. I have another bionics expert on hand, so I thought I'd drop by.
Thank you.
Yes, a pleasure. Nice bow tie, by the way.
Thanks.
How were your travels?
It's very good.
Well, I thought I'd bring one of my gauntlets and match it up with yours and see if everything's copacetic. You want to have a look?
Sure.
Ready?
Yep.
Great.
Each one looks the same.
Actually, I think yours might be better than mine. What do you say we both try them on, do a progress report?
Okay.
You know who that is?
Iron Man.
What's his name?
Robert.
Great. God, dude, it's even cooler than I thought. I'm having a technical glitch. As you can see, my light isn't working. Half the time, you know, I design one of these, it winds up breaking on me. But what I do is I keep working on it, kind of like you're working on it with Albert.
He keeps working and working until he gets it right.
Yeah, I think yours is still a little bit more right than mine because at least, you know,
The lights work.
your light works, yeah. Oh,
Thanks,
look
Sean.
at that, Dan. It's a marriage of robotic technology.
Now, you can buy a printer that can print those today on Amazon, a few $100. So I expect to see some hardware requests for 3D printers coming up soon. This is a 3D printed bus. That's the printer in the background. You can see the bus there in the foreground. I can move this, Sean. Thank you. Sean is keeping me honest and safe. Hey, check this out. We're now printing a house. This robot on the right-hand side is a 3D printer. On the left, top left, you can see how it builds a house. This thing can build 10 houses a day. So it's incredible, isn't it? On the bottom here, this is a building in China. Actually, they're doing a lot of this in China. It's an apartment complex that was built completely with basically a 3D printer. So, that's coming. What's that going to do to the building industry? It's just, software eats the world. That's all coming. We got to get our kids ready for that. Let's see. Where am I? Yes, here's a little bit of a sad story, I think. So, I work in technology, and we have job openings. So recently, job opening for an entry-level data person. So candidates come in, men and women, very nice, young, 25, 35, very capable looking, nicest people you ever met. Military, ex-military. First time they applied for a job, just back from Afghanistan, Iraq somewhere. And I'm sad to say, I hope I can hold it together. They're not qualified to do the simple job. We can't hire them. So isn't that terrible? We got to fix that. Let's see. Yes. Yeah, we got to do something about that. Anyway, so two things we can do. Teach with technology and teach technology itself. I think it's really true to say that we live in a world where our idea of success is measured by our expertise in technology. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. So that's what we have to do. Now, you might have some illusions about that, so I don't know if you can read this, but I just looked at the top salaries. I can't read it from here, but you can see they're all computer science. This is top graduate salaries. The top three of them are technology-based. This one here it's not top job growth really, it's best jobs by a number of metrics, like how many jobs there are, the salaries they pay. And you can see it's data scientist. I think there's a tax manager in there. Next one is software engineer. But again, it's a lot of technology positions. And the title there, the reason I put that there is that 10 of the top 25 jobs are directly technology, and all 25 need sophisticated levels of technology to be able to do them. So you mightn't still be convinced. This is a Compass Learning I just put up to show the difference between kids who don't use it and do. The 50, yeah, one is 50, the other is 82. Here's another one showing what kind of growth they can get. This is over a lot of, to go back, this was 420,000 NWEA map results. This is 5 million of them. So there is some proof out there. There's other programs we want to use, but we're out now trying to look at schools, how they're effectively using this, so we can bring it back to our schools. That's one of the things Kristen's working on. Here's another one. So you're still not convinced, let's say. So on the top left, what is the largest taxi company in the world? Yes. How many taxis does Uber have? That's right. Software eats the world. The next one on the right, bed and breakfast hotel. What's the largest in the world? Airbnb. And how many bed and breakfasts does Airbnb own? None. Biggest store in the world? Yeah, you'd be forgiven for thinking of it's Amazon. Did anyone say Alibaba? It's the Chinese Alibaba company. They're part of, I think Yahoo is a big investment in them. Yeah, a lot of stuff from Amazon comes actually from there. But again, how many stores do they own? How many manufacturing facilities? None. And then the last one here is content. The most content in the world is actually on Facebook. And how much content does Facebook make? Facebook doesn't make any content. So again, these are the industries we're going into where software is ruling the world. This is, I think Robert, I don't think he's here, but is he? I don't see Robert Pondicio. He presented this box. I think this is incredible because it's more powerful than the Gutenberg printing press or all books or experts or anything. And you know what it is? I think we underestimate it sometimes. It's Google. What can you not find in Google? The difference between, if we had a library that had everything Google has in it, we couldn't use it because we couldn't find anything. Books can be indexed, but but Google can go across books effectively and find things with a simple search. It's easy to underestimate how that's doing. How am I doing on time? Is Jill? I'm almost up? Oh, okay, I need to hurry things along. Okay, I was going to talk about a few things. How long do I have, Jill? 10 minutes? 5 minutes. Okay. Holy cow. Okay. Okay, I don't have to show this because everyone demonstrated their science expertise last night. I just wanted to show that if you understand science, the slide I went by is, what is technology? It's the implementation of science. That's all it is. It's true, because if you implement technology based on science that isn't right, it's going to fail. Science, how things work. I don't want to underplay for everyone in science in here, but understanding all this allows us to do things. Last night, everyone got the protons and everything right, but as a result of understanding this, these three guys, John Bertain, John Shockley, and Bratton, they invented the transistor in 1947. And it's just a switch. It's a binary switch. Remember the binary I talk about we do in schools? It just turns things on and off. But that was invented in 1947. And then that resulted in these guys showing up. So this is Jack Kilby here, Robert Nice on the right-hand side. I'll talk about Robert Nice a little bit because he's from Iowa, little town in Iowa. He has a checkered past because when he was going to school, he stole a pig, and I hope the pig was dead, but they had a lure with the pig and got in a lot of trouble at the school. He was going to get expelled, and the teachers thought he was so good in science, they paid off the pig, and they only suspended him for a quarter. He ended up going to MIT. He got out of MIT, did some work. He moved to Menlo Park, and he invented the top right there. That's a microprocessor. That's the first microprocessor. It's all about binary digits. All they are is just like your battery. It's voltage. You know, it's a switch. Just think about your flashlight. If the light's on, it's a 1, it's off. There's where you get bits. Oh, I don't have time to go through that. Math. Math, are we teaching binary arithmetic in schools? That's a 6 and a 2 there. The answer is an 8. So we need to be teaching that stuff. You need that when you get into computers. Hexadecimal, you need to know that. This here, the ASCII, does anyone know what ASCII stands for? American Standard Code for Information Interchange. That is how every character on your phone, your computer, it just comes from, see the bits along the bottom? So that first one there is 5-4, and a 5-4 is a large T. It spells team. So if you were to open any Word document, any Google Doc, anything, it would just look like those bits at the bottom. If you were to open an image, bits at the bottom. Video, bits at the bottom. If I were printing this on a 3D printer, those bits at the bottom, that's all you would see. That's all a computer does. When you buy RAM for your computer, it's storing those bits. When you buy a hard drive, it's storing those bits. The only difference between RAM and hard drive is when you turn your computer off, the RAM goes away and it's a bit faster. Color on your monitor, RGB. Anyone doing Photoshop, those hex codes, it's just bits. Larry Wilkinson, let me back up. Larry Wilkinson is now coding. Larry's doing JavaScript. He's connecting to the new Google API. I was delighted to see, actually, Larry's kids doing coding. That's a huge deal. So here's what we're trying to do. Okay, so here's what we're doing. And I'd like to get the team coming up here. So here's what we want to do. So leading with core knowledge, we add technology to it. All those things in the bottom. And so what are those? The first thing we like to think about is infrastructure at the school. So you get internet access. Hopefully here we get better for video conferencing, things like that. We're working with the Challenge Foundation Properties, who are being awesome and getting us in there early so we can make sure the schools are good. The next level is the hardware, the Chromebooks, the carts, you know all that. Next level is the software, NWEA, Compass Learning right now, do other things as well. Do I have time to show, how much time do I have, Jill? Jill says I'm out. Okay, so I wanted to show the Team CFA Resources website. Can I have 1 minute, Jill? Sean, can you bring up the team? Okay, so this is the Team CFA Resources website. We aligned this with the core knowledge domains. So Sean, click there. So you can see all the grades here. You can see there's Khan Academy. You can see there's coding. You can see there's Google Apps. There's, Sean, let's just go into 3rd grade there real quick. Yeah. So that's 3rd grade. Yeah, let's go to, let's say, ancient Rome there on the left. We all saw that last night. So we go in there. These are, yeah, we won't go into them, Sean, but these are all free links. This site's completely free. There's no login. There's no nothing. It's all aligned. Notice, I didn't even point it out. Maybe you can back up, Sean. It's all aligned with the domains in Core Knowledge. Now we also, Sean, maybe you can put me back here. And then you're going to have to get up here, Sean. I want you to introduce you to the team, and then we're done. Promised you. Okay, Google Apps. A lot of people are at the Google Apps. We actually had Google here, so Sean's working on that, which is awesome. School websites. Harry does the school websites. That was a big deal. They all got deployed, all got fixed. Everyone has theirs. We do Compass reports every week. Joseph does that. School reports for boards, and we have a certificate for teachers who show excellence in using technology. We have 6 of those we're going to present tonight at our dinner. So with that, is everyone? I was going to ask the team to come up here so we could introduce them, Jill. Oh, okay. Everyone's just going to stand up. So that's Sean Blanton back there. This is what we do on the screen here in the areas I just went through. So where's Joseph? That's Joseph back here. Where's Kristen? Everyone knows Kristen. That's Kristen back there. Where's Harry? There's Harry back there. And this is us. So we put on some contact information at first there. Joseph kind of leads the charge for us. And we're now going to be working with the instructional coaches this year to get some technology in behind all our training. Sorry for taking so much time. Thank you very much.